The last couple of weeks, Susan and I have driven around the western New South Wales and southwestern New South Wales through some diverse and beautiful and strange country, from eucalypt forests and mountains and river valleys to western plains, through to the desert regions around Broken Hill and White Cliffs, the irrigation areas down in the Riverina. And along the way we've seen many changes of flora, but even some fauna along the way, some animals, native ones, kangaroos, wallabies, even emus on the side of the road. At one point there were some donkeys, lots of goats, herds of cattle, but also flocks of sheep, many along the edges of the road, eating the grass along the road, but some behind fences in pasture areas. It reminded me of an experience we had a number of years ago. I think it was in New Zealand. We're driving rural New Zealand, and we came up, and in the distance was a flock of sheep, and there seemed to be 3 or maybe 4 guys on motorbikes and dogs keeping them moving along. And they seemed to be on either side of the road. Some were straying across it, but mainly on the sides. But up beyond them there was a bridge, 2-lane bridge, a narrow bridge. And I wondered what was going to happen. Anyway, it didn't take long to find out. When they got there, many of the sheep just kept going and walking down the sides of the bridge, and there's water. And the dogs would have to go and round them up and bring them up. And they'd go onto the bridge and cross the bridge. We were very close to them by then, and I was waiting once they'd crossed the bridge, which seemed to take an eternity, for the guys on the bikes, or the dogs, to kind of separate them again and move them to the sides of the road so the traffic could get through. Nothing doing. They were just having a great time, having a chat and a talk and just riding along, and the dogs were just amusing themselves. And the sheep filed out right across the road and you couldn't get past. I waited and waited and nothing happened, so I went up closer and tooted the horn. Nothing happened. A couple of them moved and looked around and moved, but nothing. So eventually what I realised was I had to nudge them, the ones in the back row. Nudge them, and they would run through and move, and then I'd nudge the next row and the next row, and you'd have to nudge each row of the sheep, and finally they'd separate and you could drive through. It gave me the sense that sheep are not that smart. They need to be guided, they need to be led, they need help to do just about anything. They're good at eating and getting lost and whatever else. Whilst we were driving around on our trip, we came to Wagga, and in Wagga was a botanic garden. Apart from a small zoo, which was lovely, there were areas of beautiful plants and trees and flowers. And there was a garden chapel, a paved area with grass and flowers, and up the front was a big, rough wooden cross, an altar or a table down the front, an aisle, paved aisle, and then seating. And down the back there were 2 plaques. One was the Lord's Prayer, and the other had the 23rd Psalm. And I thought of these sheep as I looked, as we drove past different places. I thought of those sheep in New Zealand, and I thought of the 23rd Psalm. And I realised it was coming up to be read in churches, and it will be this week. And I wondered to myself, how many times have I read this psalm? How many times have I pondered its meaning, what it's saying? How many times have I sat in hospital rooms with the sick and the dying, with grieving families, or at funerals, or in other occasions, or even just in church reading it and reflecting on it? Countless times. It's a psalm that is well known. Jews, Christians, Muslims all hold it as part of their scriptures. But it's known by people who have no faith. And many times I've been asked in funerals, could you read Psalm 23? They're not particularly religious people, but that's a really significant passage, really significant poem. I remember a number of times in a hospital room where someone's desperately ill or dying, and we'll talk briefly, and you can see in their face they're worn out, they're tired and drained. Maybe they're lying there with their eyes closed. And I say, would you like a reading and a prayer? And they'll nod or say yes. And I'll start, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And you can see the eyes flicker with recognition and familiarity and a sense of, a sense of comfort or peace or hope. You can see them mouth the words. He lays me down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul and guides my paths in righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. My cup overflows. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I'll dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'm not sure what it is in that psalm that brings particular comfort to particular people, but it does. It's an amazing psalm of hope and life and of the presence of God. And I see it in the faces of people when I read it. As I was pondering it this week, I realised that it's a statement of deep faith, deep commitment, deep experiential faith. That the person writing this says, the Lord is my shepherd, therefore I will want for nothing, I will lack nothing. The Lord is my shepherd, I will lack nothing. It's not a statement, the Lord is the shepherd, the Lord is a shepherd, or it's not a theological statement about what this shepherd is like. It's a statement of faith and experience. And in saying that, the psalmist and we with the psalmist are affirming that we're the sheep. And I'm one of those dumb animals. Those animals that gets lost, that needs guidance, that needs protection, that needs food and water and whatever else sheep need. And that's what this shepherd offers. It's a psalm that touches the reality of human life. I suspect it's that section in the middle, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Touches on the reality of life, that life is not easy. That life is harsh and often painful, and that all of us walk through those dark valleys, those places with the dark shadows. Whether it's facing our own death or facing suffering or pain or struggle, or the struggle of another. It's not saying that this shepherd, this God, will take it all away in some fantasy world kind of experience, but that God is with us. And because this shepherd, this God is with us, we don't have to fear evil, we don't have to fear anything. That God will walk through us, through this valley with us. And I see it in the eyes of those who are dying and with whom I read this psalm, that there's a sense of almost assurance that I'm dying, the life is oozing or ebbing from me. But the Lord is my shepherd, and I won't be afraid because God is with me. On this final journey, God is with me. It's a recognition that in our most vulnerable state, it doesn't matter who we are, it doesn't matter how much money we've got or what we can do or what career we have or had, it doesn't matter how big our house is or how new our car is, it doesn't matter how much education we've got or what qualifications we've got, it doesn't matter what our status are, whether we're a celebrity, famous, wealthy, powerful, it doesn't matter. We can't save ourselves. We can't do it alone. We can't reach into our own reserves and resources and make everything okay. That it's at those moments we reach out beyond ourselves and beyond life to the one who can hold us, to the only one who can hold us, and the only one who can walk with us, and the one in whom we have life and hope and peace. In a New Testament reading or Gospel reading this week from John 10, Jesus will say, I am the good shepherd. And in a world where leaders are often referred to as shepherds of the people, particularly in his world, but even today, we see examples in our world. Stan Grant, I heard a podcast of Stan Grant talking about the rise of the strongman. Putin in Russia, and China, and North Korea, and parts of the Middle East and Africa. Even Trump in America in a different way. The rise of these macho men, narcissistic and egotistical, who rule with an iron fist and use violence and strength and power to overwhelm their enemies. They're the leaders of the world who are poor leaders, who oppress their people and use their people as pawns for their own well-being, for their own power, for their own gain. And in this passage, Jesus says, I'm the good shepherd because I lay down my life for the sheep. I'm the one who gives myself for the sheep, the one who will go out and find the lost sheep, the one who will stand up against the wild animals and offer protection. I'm the good shepherd who cares for the sheep, and I give myself for the sheep. That's the kind of leader, that's the kind of notion of God, who gives God's self for us in vulnerability, in humility, that we might have life and have it in all its fullness. This is a hope, and this is the hope that the psalm brings to us. I want you to read the psalm and ponder it. What is it you yearn for? What is it you fear? What is it you struggle with? What is it you need? Not want, but need. And where is the shepherd in all of this who comes to you? Amen.